Jacinda Ardern was just 37 years old, very young, when she became New Zealand's, well, youngest Prime Minister in more than 150 years. She also made history as the second woman to give birth whilst in office. There she is with her wee baby. After leaving politics 3 years ago now, Jacinda is telling her story in a new memoir. It's called A Different Kind of Power. And she joins me now. And it is a different kind of power that you brought. You brought something very different. There was an empathy there that maybe had been missing. Was that the idea, do you think?
It wasn't particularly intentional, right. I think. You know, I think in part because my jump into the role of leader of the Labour Party and then Prime Minister was very swift and unexpected.
Right.
You would have seen in the book, Lorraine, that with 7 weeks before the election, my boss came to work one day, thought, I'm not sure that I'm going to win.
Right.
He quit and then he nominated me. And so I guess in a way, the speed of everything just meant that I chose to be myself.
Exactly, and that's the difference, isn't it? You weren't assuming a persona. You were just being you, and we saw that. We saw that with your response to the terrorist attack. You know, in 2019. You know, we actually saw a politician with huge empathy, and it made a massive difference, and it healed the nation. I mean, you know, people should never forget what happened then. 51 people killed. It was awful. It was horrendous. But we see you there, and it was so refreshing to see somebody just being a human being.
Well, and you'd hope that a human response would be the response that we could expect at any time in leadership. And I think what I wanted to do with the book, therefore, was just open up a little bit what it's like behind the scenes. I didn't want to write a traditional memoir. It's not full of policy and politics.
Again, it's about you, your family, and your response to massive events. That's the thing.
What it's like.
What I found really interesting was when you had baby Neve and you were there. She was, and you took her to the United Nations, and she's obviously, you know, she had to because
she's so
she had to be with you, right?
Yeah.
But we all thought, oh, look at this woman, effortlessly doing all of this, you know, juggling being a Prime Minister with being a new mother. You were struggling, and that was refreshing to read that.
I was having a very, very normal first-time mother experience.
Yes.
And actually, even at the time, I remember thinking, I don't want people to see these images and think, look, women can do it all. Because you can, but you should have support.
Yes.
And in that photo that is, I guess, in some ways considered emblematic for me.
Oh, it is, very much.
I see my husband who is there caring for our daughter. I see the foreign policy advisor who babysat her so that we could go to Donald Trump's event. I see the ambassador who redid his whole flat, his whole apartment, so that we had a space for Neve to sleep and a bouncer and a change space. So I would hate for women to look at that and think, oh, well, you know, that we should be out there leading, caring, doing everything. I had help.
No, I had help too. And your husband's been amazing. I mean, he has been absolutely amazing, and you need that. You need that support. Of course, you do.
Absolutely.
And you were able to do the job, quite rightly, as you say, because you had that support system.
Exactly.
You know, that was in place, and you were able to.
It didn't mean everything was straightforward.
No, but that's the thing. That's the thing, Jacinda. You talk about that. You talk about how hard it is, because it's not easy being a new mum. Everybody knows that.
No.
Everybody knows. Nobody tells.
I read the manual. I came away none the wiser.
Same. I think it's the same for absolutely everybody. When you decided, you know, and I mean, you went through COVID, which was very, very difficult. You got a lot of praise for how you dealt with it. You also got a lot of criticism, like most leaders. Very difficult to deal with that. But that was a tough time, wasn't it?
It was for everyone, And, you know, in New Zealand, we had 2 goals as a government. We wanted to save people's lives and we wanted to keep people together. And, you know, one we achieved, they estimated we saved 20,000 lives. But we really, you know, struggled with keeping everyone united. It was extremely difficult, and it was extremely difficult everywhere, and so many lessons to take from that. And I certainly have tried to take lessons from the experience as well.
No, absolutely. And you said, I mean, I would imagine it's not necessarily one thing that makes you decide that you want to step back.
No.
But you said there wasn't enough in the tank.
Yeah.
And I think so many people related to that.
It was
related to that honesty as well.
Yeah, and it was a year after we'd, you know, essentially people had moved on from COVID. It was a year later. But we'd had the experience of a domestic terror attack, a volcanic eruption, the pandemic, natural disasters. It it was a tough 5 years, and I was coming up to the election and had to make the decision, would I keep going or not? And, you know, when I dug deep, all the things I valued about being a leader, you know, not being defensive, keeping your curiosity, and having enough in reserve, I felt that waning.
Yeah.
So it felt like the responsible thing to do was to hand over the baton to someone else.
You know, it's very brave to make that decision, because a lot of people, and I would have to say men generally, because we are different, of course we are, we try to say we're not, we are, would hang on to power at all costs. You know, they would. But you sort of made that decision that you wanted to step back because you didn't feel that you'd be able to do the job the way that you wanted to.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it well.
Yeah.
And it was a lonely decision. You can't tell a lot of people in politics when you're thinking about resigning.
No, of course you can't. Of course
So
you
I
can't.
told 3 people, including my now husband, and he was not supportive of the decision. So it was a lonely decision, but I always felt like it was the right one.
Yeah, exactly. And you had a bit of a health scare as well, which adds to all of that. I
did. Yeah, not long before I started thinking about whether it was time. I was having a medical to go to Antarctica of all places when they found a lump in my breast, and it wasn't that was the moment that I thought, right, I need to go, but it did trigger a thought process that I think I'd been avoiding thinking about. And I wrote about that as well, just because, and I've never talked about it until now, because it is so many women have these experiences, and often they'll tuck it away, they compartmentalize it, and they keep going on with the many demands on their lives. And so I thought I'd just put it on a page because I wanted to tell the full story of what
It's important. It's important. I mean, we've just seen our Helen. We've been just celebrating our Helen. She's great, isn't she? She's fantastic. So yeah, it's important to do that because again, highlighting it can help other women.
You never know.
Do you think, even now with what's going on in the world, there is a place for your kind of politics, for a bit more tolerance, a bit more kindness?
Absolutely. In fact, now more than ever. You know, we are in a tough time in our history, and I think it's very easy in politics, and we see this globally, it's very easy for politicians to reach for fear and blame.
Yes.
The oldest tricks in the book. What's a little tougher is to present the solutions that people need to improve their lives. But I think now more than ever, people are still craving solutions, but also the way we do politics matters. Nothing makes it seem like you're further away from focusing on the issues in people's lives than if they see you distracted by conflict or focused on yourselves as politicians. I think there is a place for kindness and empathy, and there are politicians who do it, but we should just put a bit more of a spotlight on it.
Exactly, I agree. We have to allow them to make more noise. Jacinda, it's great to see you. A Different Kind of Power is out now. It's a fascinating book. I loved reading about you as a kid as well. And I'd love to talk about your dad. What a fella! What a fella he is. And we find out so much about you. It's wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and I'll just chuck in my mum as a true hero.
Oh yes, of course.
She's a wonderful woman. I'm very lucky.
Yeah, if you've got good parents, then you're there.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Well, that's a wrap for this video. We hope you enjoyed it. We have all the best moments from the show right here on the channel. And if you like this video, then we think you'll love this one. See you next time.